So happy New Year.
Yes. Happy next 12 months, man.
Yeah. How has how was things around the rest of the holiday season after having some fun learning about your Colby?
Well, just being connected to my communication style is was probably the most important thing that happened. And it's the one thing that I think because I come downstairs, I'm in full creativity mode, rocking and rolling. And then I find that two things. If I get interrupted, I'm like, oh, if I get interrupted, then it's gone. It's just like,
Mm,
"Phew." And if I try to come back here, so was able to explain that so that my wife especially, she just comes in and says, "Hey, are you in creativity mode right now?" And I'm like, "Yep." She goes like, "Hey, cool. I'll talk to you in a bit." And it's like, wow, that was awesome. And then number two is just, you know, I now catch myself explaining things to my wife where maybe it all made sense to me in the moment, but I was not giving her enough information up front for it to make sense to her at the same
mm.
time. And so I catch myself even working with, clients, patients, whatever, doing the same thing, going, all right, roll back the script a little bit and then start from there so that people can be on board with where you're at, it's been huge.
Wow, that's amazing. And so and then for your wife, for Megan, have you obviously, I mean, the way that you're connecting on that, and it's like self-awareness, self-recognition, all of this, everything that we do in this space is around a heightened degree of self-awareness. But it's hard to be self-aware of instinct because it's
Mhm.
instinctual. But
Mhm.
now you have a degree of that. So you're starting to see it. And it sounds like she's also starting to see it. And so, is there anything that you've recognized maybe with your wife, with Megan, that has also shown up as far as interactions or her asking for more detail or more clarity or information?
For a husband, it feels like there's more patience involved.
Okay.
And, I realized, we haven't had a chance to implement this it's only been a short period of time, but I catch myself going, look, this isn't 100% course correct. It's a little bit of the battle of evermore because you are who you are. But with Colby, you now have a new means by which to accept who you are and understand who you are, which then promotes facilitating changing much more versus before going, you're trying to course correct, but you don't understand where's the root.
Yeah. Course
So,
correcting can mean fighting instinct.
hmm hmm
So you also, it sounds to me like the way I would run it through Richard's program and spit it back out is to, as a check-in point, is you're with this awareness and maybe a little bit of clarity would be the word I would use. You now know how to advocate for certain elements of what you need a little bit more. Would that be a good way of addressing it?
yes. Yeah. And I think the number one key is you said the word awareness. If you didn't have that awareness, I'll just use myself first context that I would think, how come you're not getting this? What part of what I'm saying doesn't make sense? Those used to be part of my script because I didn't have the awareness to go, hey, Kyle, you're here, they're there. Come on down and join them and bring them up to you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that having that awareness is a game changer, especially marriage, huge, right? If you can make the team work at home, you can make the team work anywhere. So it's opposite, I find, especially, working with clients that they make it work elsewhere, but they can't make it work at home because it's that much closer. I think mastering it at home, you're going to be able to nail it elsewhere because it'll become that much more habitual. Because if you can make something at home a habit, you can make something outside the home a habit too.
I really love that. I think that's a great distinction. I think that everyone should take a page out of your book when it comes to that. Speaking of pages out of the book or in the book, we talked about printing the indexes, and so you had a version that you when I met and to do a consultation, you had a version already printed. I sent you the version that I had, which you requested. Did you print that off because you're more of a 3D paper kind of guy and color, right?
New one, the one-on-one,
The A to A report, yeah, yeah,
and then the one I scribbled notes on when I was talking with you the first time.
got it.
And so it's nice to have the A to A, because I was like, what is A to A? What does that mean? And I was like, it's Megan and I, my wife and I, with a comparison with notes and tips and tricks, the contables, which is really cool.
And prior to, you had the reports, you'd only had them for a short period of time. You had a chance to access audios of Kathy Kolbe explaining, the components. After we met, did you go back and listen to anything from Kathy again? Or you just kind of printed everything so you could go through it and put a little bit more focus on the contable tip areas?
Yeah. So I listened to everything before we met. My wife, she's like, just give me the Coles notes. Okay. So I'd give her the Coles notes. But since I have not gone back to listen to her, so that's a good tip because maybe there's something that I wouldn't have been aware of
Mm.
the first go around that I, perhaps would pick up on now and solidify. That's a
Yeah.
good.
What I would suggest, because the way the report and the functionality works on the Colby site, if you go back and listen to the audios, they take you from, color bar to color bar. Okay. I would actually encourage for you, I think you should go to the last one, which is implementer, because that's where you initiate action, and
Mhm.
listen to that one first, and then almost go kind of in a backwards order to some degree based on where your bars are. So rather than listening to it in the order the platform is designed, listen to it in the order your instinct is designed. And, another thing that we talked
You
quite a
should
bit
have a
about.
pro tip page.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was a brand new one. I just came up
Yeah,
with that
that's a
right
good pro
now.
tip. Put that one down.
My Colby is to be inspired in the conversation to some degree when we're having a great conversation. So, another thing that I thought was really interesting in our conversation, you talked a lot about home projects. We talked about the use of your implementer energy and the need to do the physical projects around the house, and also we talked quite a bit about the desire, and there was a way that you put it. And I mentioned it as, there's no point in even starting unless we can build it right. Like you have to make sure we might as well build it right the first time so we don't have to go back and fix it later. And to a degree, that was almost creating like a version of analysis paralysis, but it's a different variation of it where you need a certain degree of materials, quality, elements in place in order to make sure that something is going to be your version of functional.
Mm.
And so we talked a little bit about the concept of 80% is good enough to get started rather than 100%. And the reference point was that your 100% is everyone else's 120%.
Yeah.
And how is that kind of connected for you since our conversation?
Well, Richard, as a recovering perfectionist for the last 20 years, um, obviously there was some feedback in regards to, in our conversation, we were talking about my next project involving multiple practitioners, honing down to chiropractic. So anyway, I created a whole new system, new module that's specific to one practitioner. Got a hold of my VA and said, all right, so sorry. This is version 4. I said, good news is I paid you for the first 3 that we're never going to use. Let's do this 4th one. We're going to start with the website. I've given it a timeline of 3 weeks. Let's see what we can do within 2. But know that I want to be able to have this 80% done before we press play. And I was like, but I said it. And so she probably was like, okay, this is new. Sounds good to me. And I did say to her, I said, in that communication, I says, does this worry you or are you excited? And she goes, I'm excited. I said, wonderful. Let's give her.
Okay.
So yeah.
So just almost, it's so interesting to have like almost the visceral reaction of you like even communicating it that way. But you followed up with the check-in on the teammate, like, okay, how will this work for you? And to gauge that sort of thing. And I think what would be helpful, and just to add an idea, in that VA relationship, because you've already had a working relationship up to this point where she's learned there's an expectation almost of a certain degree of like completeness or quality. And it may have created, and I don't know, but you can tell me if I'm correct on this, it may have created almost like an increasing amount of check-in points. Hey, is this good enough? Is this enough? Is this sufficient? Like that type of querying. So what I might suggest that you consider is maybe, working with an AI tool or something, a ChatGPT, flush out what would some of your standards be what does done look like in this little micro area, this micro area, this micro area? So think about setting them up into like buckets, 5 or 6, maybe 7 buckets, and try to figure out what does complete look like to you inside of that little micro bucket. So then you can provide almost like a guidebook to the teammate of like, hey, this is what I'm hoping for as a standard. And then ask yourself the question, when is the check-in point required?